Welcome, everyone, to On My Mind Monday on this Monday, February 7th, 2022. Going to talk about the things that are on my mind this Monday. And the first thing that I am thinking about is Joe Rogan. I mean, are you kidding me? This is all over the place. The most listened to podcaster in the world. They're trying to cancel the guy, interestingly enough. And Neil Young said, hey, Spotify, you can have him or you can have me, but you can't have both. And Spotify said, bye-bye, Neil Young. And then Joni Mitchell chimed in and a few others and that kind of thing. And they were willing to side with their $100 million man, as I think that they should. Now, don't get this twisted. I have never been a fan of Spotify as a former recording artist. They pay the worst of anybody out there. They are just truly terrible when it comes to paying artists. But in this case, I gotta say, I'm kind of with Spotify here. You know, do you really want to be the one that censors these kind of things? Because frankly, if you don't like what Joe Rogan has to say, you can change the channel. And that really is what this ultimately comes to, at least in my opinion. And that's what's on my mind insofar as that goes. I mean, if you wanted to censor people who have given medical misinformation, and then now there are leaks that he has used the N-word, right, which is not good. You know, that's truly terrible. But you know who else has done that? You know who else I've seen doing that? In fact, I was just watching a clip a little bit ago. I don't know, the President of the United States. And the same people that are trying to cancel Joe Rogan are very much ones that supported the current President of the United States. I guess the only major difference is that Joe Rogan doesn't sniff children. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Anyway, that's what I was thinking about there. Another thing that's on my mind today is the Rooney Rule. So, as many people know, there's a former coach of the Miami Dolphins, Brian Flores, who has sued not only the Dolphins but also the league and several teams over discrimination issues. So this is something that's going to play out, and I'll be interested to see how this goes because he's actually a candidate for other head coaching jobs within the NFL. Is somebody going to hire him while he's got a suit against the league? Or maybe does someone hire him because of that to try and take the teeth out of that suit? I'm not sure how that's going to work. But the thing that I want to kind of go back to is what's called the Rooney Rule. So many years ago, there was a rule that was adopted, and it was named after Dan Rooney, who was at the time the owner of my Pittsburgh Steelers, and he has since passed on. But Mr. Rooney's rule basically said, hey, you know what? There is this large disparity between the race of players that you have in the National Football League and the coaches. So you've got all these white coaches and then this majority black football league. They're African-American mostly. You have some Hispanics, some of that, but mostly African-American, and there seems to be this disparity. So the Rooney Rule was, at least initially, hey, you know what? You need to at least interview, whenever you have these coaching positions come up, you at least need to interview a minority candidate. Well, it's gotten crazy now to the point, as Brian Flores' allegations have come out, something that I think a lot of people have really suspected, we kind of know goes on, and that is that these owners, they've kind of already chosen who they want to be their coach, but then they're just interviewing some minority in order to comply with the rule. And of course, that really just takes out the spirit of what Mr. Rooney and the league had intended in the first place. It sucks. It's terrible. I'm going to be interested to see how this works out. As it stood at the beginning of the day, the only minority coach in the National Football League was my favorite coach in the National Football League. That's Mike Tomlin of my Pittsburgh Steelers. Was the only minority coach in the league. That has since changed as the Houston Texans have hired Lovie Smith, former Buccaneers and most famously Bears head coach. He is now the head coach of the Houston Texans, and so Mike Tomlin has some company insofar as that goes. But I'll be curious to see how this plays out through the rest of this season of hiring coaches that the NFL is in right now. Well, speaking of the NFL, this next week is Super Bowl Sunday, and it's going to be interesting. We've got some fresh teams. Of course, the Rams have been there not too long ago, but still they're not a franchise that's been constantly in the Super Bowl or constantly in championship games, that kind of thing. And of course, the upstart Cincinnati Bengals, a fresh face. A lot of people love the Bengals because, frankly, if you don't live in Southwest Ohio, generally people don't really pay much attention to the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, why would they? They've been perennial losers and a terribly run organization. Thugs on their team, all that kind of thing. It just a really bad organization. And really, they haven't been a player, so why pay attention to them? Well, that has changed this year. The Cincinnati Bengals are a very different kinds of team. Gone are the thugs that they used to have, the Burfects and the Pac-Man Jones and those types. Gone is kind of the old mindset that they had under Marvin Lewis. You have now a lot of fresh faces. You've got a fresh-faced coach, a young coach who's guiding this team. You've got Joe Burrow, of course, the quarterback, who's really the face of that franchise at this time. And so there are a lot of folks that are very interested in the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's understandable because they're kind of a new thing. They're a novelty right now in the NFL. Certainly, if they were to continue to win for many years, I'm sure that people would want to see them fall as well. But right now, everybody's very much rooting for the new kid, and especially because their opponents in this Super Bowl game are the Los Angeles Rams, who are playing in their home stadium during the Super Bowl. Now, the NFL takes over the stadium. It's not like the Rams crew runs what's going on in that stadium during game day, but still, it's a place that they're familiar with, that they're comfortable playing, that kind of thing. So they're comfortable with that. Of course, I got a little bit of flack last week because I live in Southwest Ohio in the Dayton area, and I am not rooting for the Bengals. I have said that very, very clearly. I don't hate the Bengals. I am a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I hate the Baltimore Ravens. Somebody questioned if that was maybe a little too strong. No, not when it comes to the Ravens. I hate them. I don't like the Browns either. The Cleveland Browns, don't like them. The Bengals, I don't like, but I don't dislike them in the way that I do the Browns or the Ravens. So there's that. With that said, though, I am not a Bengals fan, and I am pulling for the Rams. But I got to tell you what, a team that can beat the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead is a team that is going to be very, very hard to beat. And even though I'm pulling for the Rams, unfortunately, I'm expecting the Bengals to be the Super Bowl champions on our next Monday edition of On My Mind Monday. So that's that. Now, one of the things that I did at the end of last year, I did this the previous year as well, is I bought one of these calendars, and it just kind of gives the date and then kind of gives different days that this is. And one of the things is kind of hard to see here with the lighting in the camera, but it's Fettuccine Alfredo Day. And for lunch today, I had some Alfredo, and Alfredo reminds me of my brother Mike. So my brother Mike was a Navy SEAL for over a decade, and he came home from a deployment only to discover within a few months that he had stage 4 brain cancer. He was in bad shape. His physiology, and he was in fantastic condition, but he was terminal. He had terminal brain cancer, and that brain cancer would take him in January of 2012, and we recently remembered the 10-year anniversary of Mike and his passing. So he loved Alfredo. In fact, that was one of the things that he would make at the house. He would make Alfredo, and he especially loved Carrabba's Alfredo. So he was in the hospital, and instead of having to eat all that hospital food, people would go, and there were groups, friends, family, people from his church that would go to Carrabba's once, sometimes twice a day to get their fettuccine Alfredo for Mike. And that, to me, was just such an amazing thing. And so we remember him when we think of Alfredo and fettuccine Alfredo. So I was thinking of Mike today, eating my Alfredo for lunch and just enjoying that. But it also made me think of something else. There is a scripture that tells us that we should number our days. It says, teach us to number our days that we might attain a heart of wisdom. So there's something about understanding that your days are limited. You've only got so much time. You've only got so much time. What are you going to do with that time? Well, there's a book that I have been reading recently. It's called Hero on a Mission by Donald Miller. It's pretty good. This is the same guy that wrote Story Brand and Business Made Simple and those kind of things. I didn't realize until earlier this week that he was the guy that wrote Blue Like Jazz all those years ago. Okay, go figure. But in this book, he talks about the characters that you see in any story and how those play out in life, right? Are you a hero? Are you a villain? Are you a guide? Are you a victim? Those kinds of things in the different roles. But one of the things that he talks about is the idea of writing your own eulogy. Does that sound kind of grim? I think at first it can, certainly. But the idea of writing your own eulogy, what are you about? If you've only got so much time in this world, if you estimate you're going to live to be 75 or 80 years old, or, maybe you think you're going to live older, maybe younger, that kind of thing. But when you die, what kind of things do you think that you will have accomplished that they will be talked about in your eulogy? So he talks about writing your eulogy and then reading it every day to see how you are tracking with the things that you want to accomplish and the kind of person you want to be, the kind of person you want to be remembered. And I'll be curious to see, who thinks that that's just overly morbid or who might think that that is a great idea. But that's something that I've actually been experimenting with a little bit lately. And I'll be interested to see how that fleshes out as I complete the book. I'm not done with the book yet. I'm still reading it. But that's something that I'm reading and working on right now. And I thought that was a fascinating idea of writing your own eulogy in a way of being able to number your days so that you can acquire a heart of wisdom so that you can make the most of the life that God has given you. So that's what's on my mind on this Monday, February the 7th. And I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of the week, and I will look forward to talking to you all again very soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.